Hello everyone, you're watching Kino Therapy, and welcome to another single review. I figured I would offer you guys a holiday treat. This is a special I've really wanted to talk about, and I can recommend a Halloween treat as well. Now, this isn't a scary series, but it is a spooky series. Like The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's just something you want to put on every season. Approaching its 10th anniversary, Over the Garden Wall embodies that autumn aesthetic. You can smell the dead leaves and pine maple just from gazing at this art style, which makes it a perfectly timely viewing. Additionally, the story is inspired by English folktales and American Gothic stories, evoking Beatrix Potter or dark fairy tales. It's not uncommon to attribute modern animation's influence to Studio Ghibli, but in this case, Over the Garden Wall retains a special quality that Spirited Away had. Both works contain wickedness lurking about, yet the viewer can't tear their eyes from the screen. For every scene is rich with a lustrous imagination of the highest order. There are worlds that are intimidating, but they're also inviting and wondrous. As Dorothy described the Land of Oz, some of it was very wicked, but some of it was very good. The other aspect these two share is feeling dark, but never explicit. These two animations contain heavily implied dread of supernatural horror that many would agree is mature for their intended demographic. But it never has to be gratuitous in presentation with violence, and relies on atmosphere, imagination, terrifying concepts, and inferred thoughts. We're willingly enveloped in this magical realm, yet we can't shake the feeling that a beast is lurking, ready to snatch up the protagonist in its teeth any minute. The plot follows two brothers, Wirt and Greg, dressed in remarkably appropriate nursery rhyme attire. The two brothers are lost in a land called the Unknown, and try to find their way home. A basic directive for fantasy stories like The Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, Coraline, or Spirited Away again. It harkens back to the stories of old, but utilizes this loose objective to have more free range over the episodes, in regards to story, setting, and art style. Wirt and Greg can stumble upon anything, and we don't know if their new landing will be friendly or hostile. The brothers are accompanied by a frog that Greg found, and along the way meet a bluebird named Beatrice. Also making occasional appearances is a woodcutter, voiced by Christopher Lloyd, whose distinct voice is perfect for the old, weary, agitated woodsman. Wirt and Greg must hurry, however, for a beast is following them, and if they give up hope, it will claim their souls. These are the main recurring through lines, for again, the series is mostly episodic, with overarching story progressing gradually in the background, until the finale. Wirt is a worrisome teen. He's a bit awkward, but he's the most serious of the brothers. Greg, on the other hand, is the polar opposite. Carefree, jovial, often to the dismay of Wirt. Greg's outlook on life is much more fun-loving and innocent, which inadvertently gets the brothers into more trouble sometimes. As the series progresses, Wirt becomes overtaken with despair and hopelessness, succumbing to the beast's song attempting to lure him. This leads us to one of the major themes of the series: death. This may seem like a heavy topic for a children's series, but it's not an implication you can ignore. The brothers are in a strange land of the dead, or in Wirt and Greg's case, limbo. The various settings evoke different time periods of 18th, 19th, and 20th century imagery. Relics of a bygone era coalescing in an afterlife. Wirt and Greg are sort of half-dead due to circumstances I won't divulge to you, and their quest for home is a quest for life, and awakening. This desire for life is something the unknown and the beast gradually drain from Wirt. The other major theme is hope. Greg, being a child, is naturally more optimistic than Wirt, and he sees a new opportunity for adventure in everything. Wirt is stricken with fear, and we're given more insight into his struggles. He's afraid to tell his crush how he feels. He's afraid that him and Greg will be eaten or killed. He's afraid that him and Greg will never make it home. Greg is too young to be aware of Wirt's annoyance and depression, yet he continues on, determined to save himself and his brother, ultimately coming to a difficult decision. This is where the brothers' love for each other is finally tested, and Wirt takes more responsibility for his brother and his own emotions. The series is very good at balancing tone. It premiered around the height of Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, Regular Show, Steven Universe, and shares many of the same traits as its contemporaries. That strange in-between of being fun enough for kids, yet maturely crafted enough for adults to enjoy. Scenes that are silly, but also serious and sometimes sad. Greg provides many quirky, lighthearted moments of laughter, and Wirt's neurotic offset makes the comedy more layered. In his reactions to his annoying little brother, they're a perfect duo, not just for comedy, but also the heart of the story. The episodes typically maintain being just that, episodic. Some episodes are funny, some are spooky, some are more mundane and just kind of float in this beguiling fairy tale world. It's linked to this dark fantasy quest, which keeps it cohesive, and encouraging the viewer to follow Wirt and Greg's journey until the end. They almost resemble short stories, having to tell their tale in a short amount of time, compensating for the 11 minutes with original concepts and unpredictable outcomes. Twists and turns in a short while, featuring characters we love engaging with the material. Something like scary stories to tell in the dark, or again, gothic fables, horror stories, and fairy tales. And I mean original fairy tales. Like the fairy tales where Snow White gets enslaved, Ariel dies, or the stepsisters get their eyes pecked out by crows.
You know, for kids.
In addition to classic culture, there's also slight homages to classic animation. Greg's Dream, for instance, is embedded in a Fleischer Brothers art style. The Tavern Keeper reminds me a lot of Betty Boop, with her big eyes and squeaky voice. And the Highwayman seems to echo Cab Calloway, with his sultry songs and drunken swaying. I mean, that animation was nearly 100 years ago, so by today's standards I guess it is ancient. Oof. The soundtrack all throughout the series is amazing. It sets the perfect atmosphere of vintage, fantastical, and unsettling. Various forms of classical folk music elevate certain scenes, and give it another layer that might not have been there. The soundtrack helps not just with tone, but seems to be an organic part of the episodes. It takes you to another time period and also another world. The first episode opens with a song perfectly setting the mood for the series. Lyrics of poetry and eeriness, accompanied by mysterious images of which we are soon to see. Some of these lines just haunt you in an extraordinary way.
If dreams can't come true, then why not pretend?
There's a song in each episode, sometimes diegetic and sometimes not. Some are eerie like the opening, while others are reflective of the characters and their experiences, and others are just plain fun. I'd hesitate to call it a musical, as the songs don't always take that prominent of a role, and are more just enjoyable additions. So if you're not a musical person, don't worry. Take a risk and give it a chance. You may never know. The cast includes Elijah Wood as Wirt, Melanie Linsky as Beatrice, opera singer Samuel Ramey as the Beast, as well as appearances from John Cleese, Tim Curry, singer Jack Jones provides his vocals, and a small feature from a young Jenna Ortega. Bet you didn't know that. Much like other fantasy stories, it provokes the characters to wonder whether this magical world was real or not. One episode features Greg in a dream, yet the choices made in the dream seem to affect the world outside, or at least in the unknown. Death may seem like a frightening, unprecedented concept far distant from us, but it's real. Real as all these people and places once were. This portrayal of an afterlife may be the reality we all may one day have to share. Death of the body is inevitable, but death of the soul is not. Sometimes our souls die before our bodies do. We can't let fear, despair, and depression consume us. We must be brave enough to treat the one life we have as an adventure in its own. Everyone loves Greg, and perhaps we should see the world through youthful eyes like he does. Wallowing will enslave you. Hope will set you free. And even in death, you can somehow be alive. Over the Garden Wall is a wonderful miniseries. It's funny, it's emotional, it's suspenseful, it's creepy, it's magical, and is rich with arresting visuals and imagination. Whether you're frightened, sad, or laughing, you'll be dazzled by this deep well of illustrious splendor. A blend of 2010s cartoons and references to legends and lore. Some scenes will tickle your belly, and others will chill your bones. This is a series I love to watch to set the mood just right for autumn. You'll be relishing in the intoxicating art style, charmed by the enchanting fairyland, and quoting Greg's lines. It's a delectable show that will call back to you like a song, to make a tradition out of watching it every year. And that was Over the Garden Wall. I didn't want to go too deep into the episodes because I want the series to remain vaguely ambiguous and open to you. I want you to go in with fresh eyes and be surprised and amazed. My next director retrospective is right around the corner. It is basically done. It will be out very, very, very soon. Keep the art of cinema alive, and happy viewing.